So after the collapse of GATT, then there's the initiation of the World Trade Organization in 1995, which has 164 members. The aim of WTO is first to reduce restriction on free trade. And to reduce restriction on free trade, it means it has to encourage countries to reduce their protectionist policies on agriculture, on manufacturing, on the primary sector, the secondary sector, and in the tertiary sector. But the problem facing the WTO is that any single country can stop any trade deal. The deal around has failed to progress because at any point in time, there has been at least one country that has refused to accept the outcome of negotiation on a particular issue. What's more, such decisions can be politically motivated. A country may prevent a trade deal because it wants to attack another country on a completely unrelated issue. So the first reason why we have WTO is to reduce restrictions on free trade. But the problem about restriction is that some countries have political reasons to not deal with other countries. So yes, we might have an agreement, we might have a trade agreement with other countries, but country A, we don't go in line. We are not in good terms with country A. And because we are not in good terms with country A, we are not going to be part of any agreement that involve country A. So that's unification that WTO is still struggling to ensure that it has power over. But it is difficult because each country is a sovereign state. So a country is independent. So it has the ability to choose whoever it wants to deal with and whoever it doesn't want to deal with. So WTO is still finding difficulties. And that is the only problem about trade protectionism there. So yeah, WTO is trying to reduce trade restrictions, but it cannot force countries that do not want to deal with other countries based on issues that are not even related to trade. It cannot force them because it is not related to trade. You can only question them on trade relationships, but when it comes to other relationships, other matters that are maybe political, there's nothing you could do. There's nothing WTO could do. So that is still the setback regarding protectionism. And the second one, to make sure member countries follow the trading rules. The WTO, I think the first point is clear, right?
Yeah.
To make sure member countries follow the trading rules, the WTO role is also to ensure that countries act according to the various trade agreements they have signed. The WTO discourages unfair practices such as export subsidies and dumping product below cost to gain market share. So, aside trade restriction in trade, it's also the WTO also makes sure that countries adhere strictly with the rules and regulations that guide exportation and importation. And one of those things that they discourage is unfair practices. Unfair practices regarding maybe dumping, where the price of imported products are lower than the price of domestic products. And that is what dumping is about. I think that point is clear there, right? Okay. So any country or group countries can file complaint with the WTO against the competitive practice of another country. So the WTO attempts to resolve most complaints through negotiations between the two parties. Ultimately, though, the complaint can go to a panel of experts, effectively an international court, and this panel will deliver a judgment. Either side can appeal against the judgment. However, they must eventually accept the WTO ruling. If they reject the ruling, the country that has won has the legal right to impose trade sanctions against the exports of the losing country, to impose the same damage to trade that is suffering. So this usually brings the losing party back to the negotiation. So whatever the situation might be, if there is unfair practices based on trade relationship, a country can report other country to the WTO, and sometimes it has to go through the international court. And whatever the rulings are, it is bound on the country that is, at fault to accept the WTO ruling. And if it doesn't, then it can be sanctioned on trade. I think WTO is clear there. Is it clear or not, please?
Yes.
So for WTO, the two main objectives of WTO is to reduce restrictions and trade protectionism, and to make sure member countries, adhere strictly with the rules, regulation that governs trade relationship. So then we go to trading blocks. Right back, please. We have trading blocks. We call them trading blocks because they are a group of people that are within this, a group of countries that are within the same region, coming together to, to allow free flow of goods and services. So they said the trading bloc is a group of countries that have signed a regional trade agreement to reduce or eliminate tariffs, quotas, and other protectionist barriers between themselves. The number of trading blocs has increased considerably over the past 40 years. So we call them trading blocs because they are a group of countries within the same region that have agreed to, to carry on movement of goods and services without, restriction. Most trading blocs are created by bilateral agreement. And when we talk about bilateral agreements, they are just agreements between two countries or existing trading blocs. A minority of trading blocs are created by multilateral or agreement between three or more countries or trading blocs. Some countries belong to more than one trading bloc. Some trading blocs are relatively inactive and are unlikely to lead to deeper economic integration. So sometimes you might be part of two or more trading blocs. It depends on the kind of region you fall in between. But we already know that we call it a trading bloc because different countries have come together, figuring out that they can really, transport goods and services amongst themselves. So we have the European Union. Okay, they said some trading blocs are relatively inactive. We talked about that anyway. So a few such as the European Union are very active, and it is likely that the level of economic integration between member countries will deepen over time. Trading blocs can take the form of free trade areas, custom unions, common markets, or economic union. So the most active trading bloc that we know is the European Union. Very, very active, though. So let's look at the forms of trading blocs we have. We have the free trade areas. So for a free trade area, it's where all tariffs and quotas are removed on trade in goods and services. So the first kind of trading bloc, like I said earlier, is the free trade areas. We call it a free trade area because here in this group of countries, tariffs and quotas are removed when it comes to goods between them. So that means you can import and export goods among yourself without any quota or tariffs. So, however, each member country is able to impose its own tariffs and quotas on goods it imports from outside the trading bloc. So this means an individual country can have its own trade policy with countries outside the free trade area. For example, setting lower tariffs or eliminating tariffs for some countries outside the trading bloc. Because member countries can impose their own tariffs on countries outside the free trade area, custom controls must exist at international borders within the free trade area. Otherwise, any import from non-member countries will be sent through the member countries, which impose the lowest tariffs and then transported across the internal borders. In the free trade area, member countries are not necessarily committed to working towards close economic integration. The sole objective is free trade between member countries. So for free trade area, it simply means as a member of that free trade area, you can charge your own tariffs or quotas. You can use your own trade restriction on countries outside the free area. That means you can still control your border when it comes to dealing with countries that are not part of your free trade zone. But the point is, the main objective of the free trade area is that we try to integrate ourselves in terms of allowing members among us to be able to send goods and services amongst us. We can charge other countries that are not part of the trading bloc whatever we want. But when it comes to those members of the free trade area, we are not allowed to use tariffs on quotas on them. That's the difference. That's about free trade area. Is free trade area clear? Yeah. Then we have the custom union. For the custom unions, this is where there is free trade within the trading blocks and the common external tariff on goods coming from outside the block. So, okay, let me just finish, then I'll explain further. They said a common external tariff means member countries are not free to make their own individual trade agreement with countries outside the custom union. So the custom union will act as a single body for the purpose of making any trade agreement with other countries or trading blocks. So for the common union, for the custom unions, the difference between the custom union and the free trade area is that for the custom union, members do not act independently, even when they are dealing with countries outside the custom union. So it simply means that it is unified in and out. But for free trade area, you are independent as a country to have your own policies regarding trade that does not involve those that are your members. Do you get the difference between free trade area and custom unions here?
Yeah.
For custom unions, there's free trade among your members, and you don't have access, you don't have the ability to charge outside whatever the custom union will charge when you are dealing with other countries.
Okay.
I think it's clear. So
Yeah.
that's the difference between free trade area and custom unions. For custom union, there's free trade. It's almost the same with the free trade area, but the difference there is that for free trade area, you are independent. You can as well do whatever you want to do when dealing with other countries. But for custom union, you can't. It has to be the same dealings that the members have agreed upon when you have to deal with other countries. Then the third one, then we have the common market. For common markets, these are custom unions that also include the free movement of labor and capital within the area. Product standards and law concerning free movement of goods and services are common between countries. The term single market is also used to describe a common market. For common market, it does not only involve goods, it's also about the movement of people, which means we're talking about labor. Do you get the difference here?
Yeah.
So there's free movement of labor when it comes to a common market. It's different from the custom union. The custom union is about goods and services. The free trade area is about goods and services. But for common markets, we're simply talking about custom unions that allows free movement of people and goods. I think it's clear.
Yeah.
And they use single markets to describe it. I think common market is clear, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Then we have economic and monetary unions. For the economic unions, they said economic unions are where the economies of members countries are as fully integrated as different regions within the country. Economic union implies that there's some degree of fiscal union with a central body having some powers over taxation and spending, and monetary union, which is currency, that like the euros. So the most important monetary union today is the Economic and Monetary Union, EMU, of the EU. On 1 January 2002, euro notes and coins replaced national currencies in 13 European Union countries. The UK, Denmark, and Sweden decided not to join and kept their national currencies. By 2018, the euro was the common currency in 19 out of the 28 European Union countries and used by 338.6 million people every day. So for monetary union, it means members countries have no individual control over monetary policy or exchange rate policy. For example, the European Central Bank is responsible for monetary and exchange rate policy across the whole of the Eurozone. Interest rates set by the ECB will be set in the interest of the Eurozone as a whole. So before we go further, the economic and monetary unions means members do not have power over exchange rate and interest rate. And the most popular one is the European Union, which has the Economic Monetary Union. Are you with me, please?
Yes.
So for EU, for the ECB, the European Central Bank, is in charge of interest rate and exchange rate. So in as much as you're part of the member of EU, aside Sweden, Denmark, and UK, aside that have their own currency, the rest of the countries that are part of the EU they have to use the same currency, which means euros is the same in all these countries. And they have to adhere strictly with the ECB, even if they have to deal with their own countries. So that's about ECB. So loss of individual controls over monetary policy may benefit some countries and disadvantage others. This is an inevitable feature of any monetary union. For example, the Eurozone, such as Greece, has severe recession. If this country had not been in the single currency, they would have had the option of printing more of their currency, which would have made their exchange rate cheaper. It would also have put downward pressure on their interest rate. As a result, aggregate demand would have risen. So to counteract this loss of individual control over monetary policy, fiscal transfers between regions are often required when an individual country is performing badly. So sometimes it is beneficial when you have the same unified monetary policy.
Sometimes it's not.
Sometimes it's a setback, especially for countries that are not doing well. But they made example of they used Greece. Yeah, Greece was on recession for close to a decade, and they couldn't do anything because it is beyond the Greece government control because they use the euros. So had it been Greece was a country that is not part of the EU, it might have come up with its own policies to get out of that recession. But that was difficult. And that is why the European Union tried to use fiscal measures, that fiscal transfer, to solve problems that are related to individual countries. So monetary union also means there must be some degree of fiscal union. For example, the EU recognized that there would be major problem if a Eurozone member country behave in a fiscally irresponsible way. If the government of large countries such as France or Germany borrowed large amounts of extra money to finance fiscal deficit, this could increase inflation across the Eurozone. The EU also recognized that there could be problems if the government of a country borrowed so much that it could not repay its debt as they became due. So for this reason, they agreed that the Growth and Stability Pact that was replaced in 2010 by the Fiscal Compact, the Treaty on Stability, Coordination and Governance. Okay, so before I go further, they are saying that countries that have the opportunity to, like European giants like Germany, France, they have the opportunity they have access to taking loans from the EU, from the ECB. But if they act irresponsible towards it, it's going to affect the whole trading bloc. Because if they are unable to pay, if they are unable to pay back their debts, it means shortage of cash within the EU. And if they also pay large debt, if they are financing their debts with borrowing, it's going to make the value of the euros to fall. And that would affect the Eurozone. So there are two main fiscal. So that as a result of that, they come up with fiscal rules, which are one, not exceed the fiscal deficit for more than 3% of GDP, have a national debt of no more than 60% of GDP. So before you could have access to loans, it would mean that you have a fiscal deficit that is no more than 3% of your GDP. And when we talk about fiscal deficit, we're talking about your expenditure exceeding your revenue by just 3% of your GDP. Are you with me, please?
Yes.
And have a national debt of not more than 60% of GDP. So your national debt must not exceed 60% of your GDP. So if your GDP is, let's say, 1 billion, you must not have a national debt that is less than 60% of it.
Okay.
Do you get it?
Yeah.
So these are rules to ensure that there is responsibility, there is no irresponsible act of spending because whatever they do, it affects the whole Europe. So these fiscal rules have been tested to the limit since the financial crisis of 2007 and 8. This is because the government of a number of countries have found themselves with national debt over 100% of GDP, which is more because it shouldn't be more than 60%.
نعم.
So they said, okay, there are examples of monetary unions other than the EMU. This includes the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, a group of Eastern Caribbean countries, including the Dominican Republic, Grenada, St. Lucia, which use the East. Yeah?
Okay.
Okay. Groups of countries by forming, Grenada and St. Lucia, which use the East Caribbean dollar. So groups of countries by forming trading blocs may evolve over time, so they go from fairly shallow integration, such as a free trade agreement, and move gradually towards more complete economic integration with an economic and monetary union. Complete economic integration is when countries in a union operate in the same way as countries, departments, regions, or areas in a nation state. So complete economic integration is therefore associated with political union. With complete economic integration, there is harmonization of economic policies. This means there are common standards, rules, and relevance on everything from safety standards to tariffs, taxes, and currencies. So the movement is, if we are able to come up with not just the trade aspect of it, but if we are able to, integrate economic and monetary policies or integrate economic and monetary unions together, it means we are already forming a nation inside the states, and that will bring about harmonization. So, however, although a trading bloc might move through stages of ever increasing economic integration, but this is not inevitable. But all in all, excuse me, please. So if, like I said earlier, if we are able to, combine both economic and monetary integration, it allows us to be able to run as a nation, and that is more important, but it is difficult though. So we have other examples of trading blocks. They said a few trading blocks have significant impact on world trade. So what are those trading blocks that have impacts when it comes to world trade? Number one is the European Union, which is most active anyway. The European Union in 2008, the EU had 28 member countries and had reached this size with the accession of Croatia in 2013. It is in the process of transforming itself from a custom union to a full economic union. 4 additional countries, Norway, Iceland, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, are not part of the EU but participate in the EU single market, which allows the free movement of goods, people, financial capital between countries. So these countries are not part of it, but they also participate. They participated in the single market, which is the common market. That's about EU. Then we have NAFTA, which is the North American Free Trade Agreement. NAFTA is the world's largest trading bloc measured by the GDP of its 3 member countries, the US, Canada, and Mexico. Formed in 1994, it's a free trade area which covers trade in all goods except agricultural products. Removal of tariffs barriers has led to the relocation of many businesses to Mexico to take advantage of much lower wages. There has been a large increase in the number of maquiladoras, Mexican factories which take in imported raw materials and produce goods for export. Associated with NAFTA are a number of other agreements between the 3 countries, including ones on the environment and labor. However, at this stage, there are no serious political negotiations to move NAFTA from being just a free trade area to a custom union. So there's NAFTA, which comprises of America, Canada, Mexico. But the point about NAFTA is that Mexico is the highest producing agricultural country because of its low wages on agriculture. And but NAFTA is not moving towards custom union. It's not moving towards custom union. So that's about NAFTA. Then we have the ASEAN, the Association of South Asian Nations, which was formed in 1992, which consists of 10 member countries from Southeast Asia. The ASEAN Free Trade Area, AFTA, allows each country to set its own tariffs on import, but imposes no or minimal tariffs on goods, which have an ancient 40% content value. These are rules that are set by different
Unions.
trading blocks or unions. So, but the point is, we just have to know if they are common market or custom union or free trade area. That's the point about the unions. Then going down, we have Union of South American Nation. The Union of South American Nation is a union of 2 South American trading blocks, the Andean Community of Nations and Mercosur. Most South American countries belong to USAN, the aim of which is to create a single market between member countries, but little progress has been made to date on this objective. So for USAN, they are trying to create a single market, which means a common market, which allows free movement of goods and people. But it's not progressing anyway, like they said, but little progress has been made to date, okay? Then we have CPTPP, which was set up in 2018, Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, okay? But all in all, we just have to understand these trading blocks and if they are common market, if they are custom union, or they are free trade. So go to cost and benefits of membership of a trading bloc. So what are the benefits and the cost of being a member of a trading bloc? Shall we start, please? So the first one, they said trade creation and trade diversion. When a small number of countries form a trading bloc with tariffs on countries outside the bloc, there will be winners and losers. The removal of trade barriers between member countries will cause an increase in trade between them. It creates trade. That's trade creation. So trade creation is said to take place when a country moves from buying goods from a high-cost country to buying them from a lower-cost country. This is a benefit when it comes to trading bloc. So it simply allows you to buy from the cheapest member. So that creates trade. So country A might have imposed a 50% tariff on imported cars. As a result, all cars sold in country A were produced domestically. It now joins a custom union. So joining the custom union means the common external tariff is 50%, but cars from member countries can be imported free of the tariff. So country A now buys some cars from common market countries because they are lower priced than those previously produced domestically. Consumers in country A benefit because they are able to buy cars from a cheaper source. And that is what trade creation is. It allows you to buy goods from a cheaper member. That is trade creation, which is an advantage when you are part of a trading bloc. Do you get that?
Mhm.
Then we have trade diversion, which takes place when the country moves from buying goods from a lower cost producer to buying from a higher cost producer. For instance, before entry to the EU, the UK had low or zero tariffs on imported food. It bought from the lowest cost producers around the world, such as New Zealand and the USA. After entry, the UK had to impose the much higher EU common excise tariffs. As a result, it became cheaper to buy food from other European unions, such as France and Italy. So France and Italy are higher cost producers than the USA and New Zealand for many food items. So in general, the higher the tariffs imposed by a country before entering a trading bloc, the more likely it is that trade creation rather than trade diversion will take place. So it is also true that the net gains will tend to be larger the greater the volume of trade between the countries in the trading bloc. So there's trade diversion if you have to start buying from a higher cost country and stop buying from a lower cost country because you have joined or you become part of the trading bloc. So trading blocks can be seen as the second best solution in a world where there is protectionism. Economic efficiency would be maximized if there were no barriers to trade between all countries and there was free movement of factors of production. In this world, comparative advantage will determine which country produces what goods. This would be the first best solution. In the real world, such conditions don't exist. Economic inefficiency arises because relatively high cost producers can shelter behind protective barriers. A trading bloc brings down these barriers, at least between member states. Member countries may therefore be able to switch buying from a high-cost producer to a low-cost producer. However, countries will only benefit if trade creation is greater than trade diversion. Gains from trade creation are static gains. They occur permanently following the creation of or entry to a trading bloc. Membership of a trading bloc may also result in dynamic gains and losses, gains or losses which occur over a period of time. So, the point about trade creation or the point about the benefit of being a member of the trading bloc only comes if your trade creation is greater than your trade diversion. But there's no way you want to join, you want to be part of a member of a trading bloc that you won't, when you are facing this country, it means you are backing other countries. So if you are not part of the EU, if you are part of the EU, whatever affects the EU affects you when you are relating to other member or other trading blocs. So if you are part of the EU, if you are able to get goods and services at a cheaper rate, that is trade creation. But because you are part of the EU, you are unable to get goods and services at a cheaper rate. That is trade diversion. So the extent to which you have trade creation or trade diversion will determine if it is beneficial for you to be a member or not. Do you get trade creation and trade diversion here?
Mm.
Trade creation occurs because you are able to buy at a cheaper rate as a result of being a member. Then there's trade diversion, which allows you to start buying at an expensive rate because you become a member of a trade union. So it is beneficial if trade creation is higher or greater than trade diversion. Is that one clear?
Yeah.
That is for membership. Now we have competition costs and prices, right?
Mm-hmm.
They said a possible dynamic gains arises from increased competition between firms. A trading bloc eliminates or reduces restrictions on trade between member countries. Domestic industries will therefore face greater competition than before from firms in other member countries. Firms want to find ways of keeping their costs as low as possible to remain price competitive. Greater competition forces firms to be price and non-price competitive. So before we go further, we're talking about competition here. For competition, because you are part of a trading bloc, it simply means whatever you produce in country A, country B can as well sell the same product in your own country. So as a result of this, you start thinking about becoming efficient. Because if you are not efficient, then it becomes difficult for you to compete. Being a member of a trading bloc, firms from different trading blocs can sell to customers of different trading blocs, can sell to customers of the same trading bloc, even if they are not in the same region, in the same country. So it simply means firms have to be efficient because if they want to be price competitive. And it is difficult for them to use, they might, yes. So the point about here is that there's greater competition among firms that are within the same trading block. So greater competition forces firms to be price and non-price competitive, which simply means because you are selling to the same customers within the trading block, you have to be price competitive. That means you have to sell at the lowest possible price. And you have to also use non-price competitive like advertisement, branding to attract customers from different countries within the same trading block. If the trading block is also a monetary union like the European Union, this should rather further result in lower prices for consumers. A single currency makes it easier for customers to compare prices between different countries. This is called price transparency. This makes it easier for consumers to buy from the cheapest source and therefore puts more pressure on firms to be price competitive. Also, multinational producers are far less able to price discriminate between countries by charging higher prices in some than in others to earn monopoly profits. So if the trading bloc is also part of a monetary union, it simply means there's price transparency. So €1 in any European country, any European Union member is €1 in other European members too. So if the price of bottled water in a trading bloc is €1, €1 in another country that are in the same trading bloc should be the price of bottled water should be €1 there. So consumers have the opportunity to compare prices because the euros are the same, the price are the same, the quantity is the same. So it becomes easier for them to choose either to buy from you or not to buy from you. Importation is cheap. It's free. So there's free movement of goods from within the European Union, which simply means that if you are not producing cheaper domestically, other firms that are producing cheaper will be able to sell in your own country. So that forces you to be more efficient. Do you get it?
Yeah.
So this is beneficial to customers because customers have opportunity to buy from the cheapest source because there's price transparency. And for multinationals too, multinationals are able to sell. They are able to produce in any of the trading blocks, but they won't be able to earn higher profits because prices are always transparent to everybody to see. So the increase in competition between firms leads to gains in productive efficiency, allocative efficiency, and dynamic efficiency. These efficiency gains will promote economic growth for countries in the trading bloc, although there is likely to be greater competition in the short run. Evidence suggests that this competition might be reduced in the long run. Competition will drive the least efficient firms out of the market, as the theory of perfect competition predicts. Other firms will seek to maintain monopoly profit by reestablishing control over their markets. They will do this by merging with or taking over foreign firms within the trading bloc. Over time, the oligopolistic nature of competition in domestic markets will be recreated on the trading bloc level. This may benefit the consumer through economies of scale, but it certainly will not bring benefit that free market economy suggests. The monopoly power is likely to make prices higher for consumers in some markets. So there's monopoly, there's oligopoly, and the perfect market in this situation. Now, let's take it one at a time. Because it's a trading bloc, which has the same monetary union, firms will be forced to be allocative, productive, and dynamic efficient. Any firm that is unable to be efficient will leave the market. But leaving the market will create an oligopoly situation because it will remain few firms selling within the trading bloc. And if few firms are selling within the trading bloc, it reduces the choices for customers. And they might as well make more profit as a result of that. And with this oligopolistic situation, firms within the trading bloc might as well merge to become a monopolist. And becoming a monopolist means consumer will be charged a higher price. Do you get it?
Yeah.
Trading bloc will create a perfect competition.
Okay.
But the point is, creating a perfect competition means firms should be efficient. But not all firms will be efficient because not all firms have the same capacity.
Yes.
So those firms that are not efficient will leave the market.
Yes.
Leaving the market means there will be few firms remaining. Those few firms will continue to run the market. But because it's oligopolistic, they cannot use price competition. Some firms will still leave the market in the long run. Leaving the market in the long run might create what we call a monopoly power. And creating a monopoly power means prices will be charged at a higher price.
Okay.
So that is what competition will bring about. Is it clear?
Yeah.
However, large international monopolies earning considerable abnormal profit will have the resources to devote to research, development, and investment. If they fail to develop products that satisfy consumers' wants, their monopoly will be lost through the process of creative destruction. Well, even a monopolist firm will face a downward slope demand curve. So, irrespective of how you are as a monopolist, you still have to be efficient, because if you are not efficient, consumers will stop buying from you and a new market will be created. So they said that's what we call the creative destruction. Competitors will break their monopoly by creating new products. Like I said, they will create new products. So this constant development of new products may be more beneficial to consumer welfare than a few percent of the price of existing products. So irrespective of how the power you have as a monopoly is, you still face a downward slope demand curve. As a result of that, you have to be efficient. If you are not efficient, there will be what we call creative destruction, which means your product will be recreated. Your product will be created. The kind of your product will be created by new firms. New firms will come into that market. And when they come into that market, they break your monopoly. Another benefit is economies of scale. One important dynamic gain of membership of a trading bloc comes from economies of scale. In a trading bloc, the potential size of the market is inevitably larger than in the national market. For instance, in 2018, the EU had 508 million inhabitants compared to 1.2 million of Cyprus. This means that important economies of scale can be achieved by national companies if they access a market throughout the trading bloc. This is no easy task, given that each country is likely to have different consumer preferences. However, some products such as basic chemicals are demanded by all countries. Other products such as cars are relatively easily sold across national boundaries. Other products such as makeup may need different packaging for different countries, but the basic product is the same. So, another advantage of being a member of a trading bloc is economies of scale. Why economies of scale? There's economies of scale because you'll be able to operate on a larger scale. Because you have access to large numbers of customers within the trading bloc than your domestic customers. But this is still restricted to common products. Some products need different package, different way of selling. And customer demands also differ for some products. But mostly, if you are selling a common product, you have access to a larger market customer base, and that gives you the opportunity to exploit economies of scale.
Okay.
So economies of scale will be achieved over a period as companies expand internally or merge with other foreign companies. The size of the potential gains will be greater the more homogeneous the taste of the consumer within the market. So the gain is about the similarity in the product based on consumers' needs. So if you are producing goods that consumers really wanted, then you're going to make more money. Economies of scale bring benefits to consumers because average cost of production fall, so prices are likely to fall too. So a trading bloc with a monetary union means that there is even more scope for firms to benefit from economies of scale. No exchange rate costs and greater price transparency are likely to lead to more trade between member countries. This may further increase cross-border mergers and takeovers to create larger firms supplying across the trading bloc, rather than just a single national economy. This might mean economies of scale are more fully exploited, further reducing prices to consumers. If the trading bloc is also with monetary union, it simply means that you will be able to exploit larger economies of scale because you won't be thinking about exchange rate. There's no disparity. You won't be thinking about exchange rate. There's price transparency, which allows you to even merge with different countries. So if you are buying a firm in another country within the same trading bloc, you're going to use the same euros to buy it. So there's no disparity amongst the currency. So that makes it cheaper. And that makes it easier to have, to merge or to integrate. Then we have transaction costs. So we have transaction costs. Transaction costs are extra costs involved in the exchange of goods and services. With international trade, transaction costs arise if different currencies are used. So with trading bloc, if we are using a single currency, if it's a monetary union, then we won't have transaction cost because euros is euro everywhere. But if there's going to be trading, there's going to be trade among different countries with different currency, there's going to be exchange rate differentials there. So they said if different currencies are used, when countries have their own currencies, there can be exchange rate variation in a floating exchange rate, which means it's determined by the demand for and the supply of, where exchange rates are not fixed. For example, exporters and importers don't know what the exchange rate will be in 3 months' time. So in the monetary union, a single currency will eliminate the risk that would have arisen from the exchange rate changes between member countries. So a single currency means that there are no exchange rate costs in making transactions. It is as costless for a French firm based in Calais to buy from a firm in Germany as from a firm in Paris. In contrast, a French firm buying from an American firm will still have the cost of changing currency. This is not just the commission and the charges imposed by banks. It is also the cost arising from the risk factor of currencies. Also, the cost arising from the risk factor of currencies changing in value from day to day in a floating exchange rate system. A trading bloc with monetary union removes this transaction cost. So there's transaction cost. So we have transaction costs because we have different currencies when it comes to exchanging goods and services. But if we are part of a trading bloc with the same monetary union, the transactional cost is done. We won't have it. It will be eliminated because we use the same currency. And why do we have transaction cost? We have transaction cost because we are using different currencies. And currencies are based on exchange rate in the floating system exchange rate. And when we talk about the floating exchange rate, we're talking about demand for and the supply of determining the price of a currency. Do you get it here, please? So there's only transaction cost if the trading bloc is not part of a monetary union. But if the trading bloc is part of the monetary union, transaction cost is eliminated. I think the point there is clear. Okay. Go to movements of factors of production. Are you there? Now, when we talk about factors of production, we're talking about resources that help in the production of goods and services. So these are land, labor, capital, and enterprise. It's like in a common market or economic union, there's a free movement of factors of production. This will transfer real resources from country to country. So there's free, when it comes to a common market, there's free movement of all the factors of production. That's what they are saying here. The countries in the common market which are particularly dynamic and successful are likely to attract inflows of labor and capital. Countries which have lower growth rates are likely to suffer net capital outflows and lose some of their best workers to other countries. We call it brain drain. So this could increase regional differences, making the richer nations relatively even richer. The process may be more intense if the successful countries are at the geographical center of the common market, where the less successful countries are on the edge. Let me just stop for the other. So before I go further, the movement of factors of production, yes, labor and capital can move. But the problem about labor and capital moving is that labor and capital will move solely to countries that are successful. And because they are moving from countries, they are moving to countries that are successful, it makes those countries to be more richer than others within the same trading bloc. Do you get the point there? So that gives them a competitive advantage. They said, and central countries tend to have a competitive advantage over countries on the edge. Neoclassical economic theory suggests that free market forces will equalize the difference between regions. An unsuccessful region will have cheaper labor and cheap land. Firms will be attracted into the region to take advantage of this. In practice, this effect seems to be very weak. Cheap labor economies can easily become branch economies. Firms set up branches in these regions employing cheap labor to perform low productivity tasks. Tasks which have high value added are completed at headquarters in higher cost areas. So the result is growing economic divergence, with poorer regions losing the most skilled of their labor force to the richer regions and being left with less dynamic and less skilled workers to do less paid jobs. Though the neoclassical economic theory suggests that this can be equalized, but the point is, you can only talk about cheap labor for cheap jobs. If it becomes technical, you need skilled workers, but the country is brain drained. So it still falls back to going back to those countries that are successful. And the countries that are successful will always have edge over the unsuccessful countries because they are attractive. Do you understand the free movement of factors of production here? Movement of factor of production is cool, but the point is it is beneficial to countries that are successful. And not all European countries, not all the EU members have the same success. Some has edge over others, some has competitive advantage over others. So it simply means we just have to go to where we feel comfortable, where we feel better off, than staying where we don't feel okay with. Do you get it? There are possible conflict between trading blocs and the WTO. Definitely, there's going to be conflict between the WTO and trading blocs because the trading blocs are regional. WTO is worldwide, and they are both aiming at doing the same thing. So although the World Trade Organization permits trading blocs, as long as they lead to lower protection against outside countries than before the creation of the trading bloc. Trading blocs do sometimes conflict with the objective of the WTO. First, the WTO aims for free trade between all its members. Trading blocs only achieve free trade between the countries who are members of the trading bloc. So there's conflicting issue here. WTO aim at giving free trade to all members. That means world trade. But for the trading blocs, they only want to give free trade to members within their region, which is conflicting the aim of WTO. Do you get it?
Mm-hmm.
So this means trading blocs do not produce anywhere near the economic gains that could be achieved by a world trade agreement between all countries. So the economic gains from specialization predicted by the theory of comparative advantage combined with the losses because of trade diversion mean that any regional trade agreement will almost certainly produce an inferior outcome compared with an agreement that included all the WTO members. So when you have regional trade agreement, it is an inferior outcome because it is restricted among the members. You can't compare that agreement with having an agreement with the whole world. Do you get it?
Yeah.
So an RTA may be better than no agreement, but economists have criticized some RTA for actually leading to a loss of economic welfare because the gains from trade creation have been outweighed by the losses from trade diversion. So with regional trade agreements, it leads to trade diversion than trade creation. Because as soon as you become part of the member, that means you back certain regions, which means whatever is being in agreement is what you have to strictly do, especially if it is in the custom union. The common market, the free trade area is fine, but when it comes to the custom union, so you can't act independently. And because you cannot act independently, it brings more of trade diversion than trade creation.
Okay.
Do you get it?
Yeah.
Secondly, trading blocs fail to meet the standards of WTO, most favored nation clause, which says that a country which offers a cut in tariffs to one country has to offer the same terms to all WTO member countries. This is not possible when it comes to custom union. Thirdly, conflict between trading blocs or between a trading bloc and another country can lead to a rise in protectionism. The WTO does have rules which prevent members increasing protectionist measures. However, there are exceptions. For example, a country can raise barriers against products that are considered to be traded unfairly from specific countries. A country or trading bloc may stretch these rules. This would undermine the WTO and be more likely to cause trade wars. There could be retaliation. So the point here is that rules that WTO sets that affect the trading bloc might bring about the trading bloc with members of the trading bloc retaliating. And if they retaliate, it creates war. Do you get it?
Mm-hmm.
Fourthly, the WTO aims to support development. For example, the WTO aims to give developing countries, which make up 3/4 of WTO members, more time to adjust to the world trading rules. However, most developing countries are currently not members of any powerful trading bloc. At the same time, they often face relatively high common external tariffs from trading blocs, such as the EU. This means the development gap between advanced economies and developing countries may also increase. WTO might give you space and time to reach the standard that is expected of you. But European Union will not give you the same standard, the same time. Which simply means if you have to send, and most of the developing countries do not even belong to any trading blocks. Which simply means that they only rely on WTO. But WTO cannot decide for RTA. Do you get it?
Yes.
So which simply means that these countries that are not part of any trading bloc will still be faced with difficulty, which is what WTO is clamoring for. Are you with me?
Yes.
Lastly, the existence of trading bloc might offer countries an alternative to join the WTO. Equally, being a member of the trading bloc might seem more important to a country, making the WTO agreement less significant for them. In 2018, there was a concern that the rules of the world trading system were not being respected. The US was threatening to and increasing their use of protectionist measures, perhaps because they felt that in the past, the WTO had not been effective in preventing what they thought was unfair competition from countries such as China. Despite all the possible conflicts between the aims of the WTO and trading blocs, many would argue that these conflicts are overstated. In fact, trading blocs might help to promote free trade because trading blocs result in free trade between members. This may end up cutting tariffs more quickly and by more than any WTO round might achieve. Having trading blocs might just be a way of accelerating the move towards unilateral trade liberalization. In practice, rounds of the WTO have failed to make progress, whereas the growth of trading blocs continues. So before we go further, WTO is becoming less significant because the trading blocs continue to come into existence. So it is more ideal for a country to be part of the trading bloc than to be part of the WTO. So if a country has to choose between the trading bloc and the WTO, a country will choose the trading bloc because the trading bloc is easier to reach than the WTO. Mm-hmm. Do you get the point there? Yeah. And when you look at it this way, whatever WTO wants to achieve, it could be easily done through the trading bloc. Because being a member of a trading bloc means you have access to the region. Yes or no? Mm-hmm. So WTO wants wants free trade of goods and services across the world, right? Mm-hmm. What you just have to do as a non-member is to make your company establish in the trading bloc. And if your country is able to, if a firm in your country is able to establish in a trading bloc, it means you can freely sell goods out of the trading bloc. Mm-hmm. Do you get it? Yeah. But the point about WTO is that the increase in trading blocs makes it difficult for WTO to operate. And that was the reason why USA is sanctioning, complaining about inequality within exportation from China, that China is dumping. Do you get it? Yeah. So the point of contention here is that WTO could help, but saying that the trading bloc could also help, but saying that the trading bloc is causing issues, the creation of trading bloc becomes an issue for the WTO is overstated, because the more the trading bloc increases, the more it becomes easier for WTO to achieve its aims. Do you get it? Mm-hmm. So trading blocs may also promote greater economic and political integration, reducing the chance of dispute between countries. They also negotiate as one body at the WTO, speeding up any decision-making process. So look at it this way. Instead of WTO to invite all countries into WTO, the trading bloc can represent 15 countries at a go. So that makes it faster when decision-making is to take place. Do you get the advantage there? Yeah. So as regards the development argument, although some trading blocs such as the EU can be criticized for benefiting only developed economies, there are trading blocs which include both developed and developing countries, for example, CPTPP, which includes both Vietnam and Japan. So the point is, the only criticism we have here regarding trading bloc is the European Union, which does not, soften its policy when it comes to non-members. I get it. Do you get it? So that's about trade liberalization and trading blocs. Any question? No. Okay, you have the activity to do or the exam practice. Sorry.